We take you on a journey through the landscape of Shantiniketan. No, it is not what you're thinking, the renowned Vishwabharati campus. This is a different place, part of Shantiniketan, yet distinct, not quite urban, nor entirely rural. It feels pastoral, far away from the hustle and bustle of a city, but it's not quite the countryside. This landscape has been the subject of poetry and paintings. Here, the boundary between art and architecture dissolves, and slow rhythms of life are celebrated in music and dance. The landscape has been shaped by the presence of water in the river, in the nalas and pools of Khowai, and in the pukurs of Santhal hamlets. Kailashpati Maurya, Upma Sen, and I, Amita Sinha, shared our experiences as we walked, photographed, conversed with locals, and imagined the future of this place. We will walk along the river Kopai, wander through the lanes of Santal hamlets, listen to Baul minstrels, and be immersed in the sights and sounds of bustling hearts on the Khowai. Our narrative begins when we did a design workshop in foggy January. This was nearly 2 years ago. We tell the story of a day in Shantiniketan, spent to explore its heritage and to plan for its future. A map is what the static eye in the sky sees and cannot adequately capture our perceptions and memories, but it does orient us to where we are. This slice of land is in the northeastern outer fringe of Chota Nagpur Plateau. It is the region of red gritty laterite and alluvium known as Rar. The undulating land known as Bhuvandanga, meaning inhabited by dacoits, was barren until about 150 years ago. Today it's a lush landscape of paddy fields on the banks of Kopai, rural hamlets, wildlife sanctuary, remnant Khowai, Benuria Canal, all north of Vishwabharati campus. It is a mosaic of many diverse landscapes stitched together by dirt paths, narrow pedestrian lanes, and wider metal roads. Each landscape is a rich multi-sensorial experience and tells the story of its own culture evolving in tandem with land, flora, fauna, and the seasons.
My friends and I decided to follow the river Kopai that seemed to be the lifeline of this serene landscape. Our journey started from the Kopai viewpoint, which is a picnic spot attracting many visitors who walk into the river from the lowest stone bridge. This spot on the river bank provides a picturesque view of the lush greenery, a dilapidated brick kiln, and agricultural fields in the distance. As the sun rose, the place stirred into life, becoming active and lively with visitors having chai in tea stalls and buying food from itinerant vendors. We observed a tourist bus parked and visitors in colorful clothes were sitting in big circle. Walking further, we admired the neat row of green plants in farms that depended upon Kopai for water. We saw women carrying water in pails to the small eateries catering to the tourists. We were sad to see the illegal land mining on the riverbank. This landscape was serene and beautiful. It felt an escape from the chaotic lifestyle of the city. As we walked along the river towards southwest, we observed a shift in the land cover in the dry flood plain. The riverbank suddenly transformed to a rural landscape with agricultural fields on both sides. Villagers were planting mustard on the floodplain. At some places, where the water level was low, villagers carrying firewood were wading through the river. We were engulfed by natural flowering shrubs as we walked further. It was a fragrant and colorful stretch, a very pleasant experience indeed. There are many viewpoints along the river for admiring the picturesque views because of the meandering character of the river. After crossing two hamlets, we came across an active brick kiln. The riverbank is a temporary escape and relaxing place for the workers as they enjoy their lunch, and some also dived in the water. Having arrived at that moment, we also dived in the water. As we proceeded further, we observed a change in land cover once again. A large stretch of harvested agricultural fields came into view. The texture of the harvested field glittered in the scorching afternoon sun. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, the landscape looked different, so we ended our walk along the river and recorded our observations. We saw a road leading to a Santhal village nearby. I wonder what we could have found there. Upma, can you take us through that village?
I took a Toto ride through the Santhal villages with a few friends. Growing up in cities all our life, this was an adventure for us. Walking through the alleys of these hamlets we experienced Santhal life firsthand. The Santhal tribe has inhabited Shantiniketan since ages, and there still exist several such tribal hamlets in this region. I took a tour through a few, namely Pearsonpalli, Balipara, Fuldanga, Gwalpara, and Polashmoni. While some of the hamlets have already undergone urbanization and the houses were being built with new materials such as tin sheets for roofing, they still retain the original village character in parts. What captured my attention immediately was the color of the huts. We asked the local people about this and were astounded to know that they derive these pigments from nature and materials of daily use. As for example, they obtain white from lime, black from carbon, blue from indigo, and red from the local soil.
I had observed that the soil in Shantiniketan has a deep reddish tint to it.
Yes, the soil in this region is locally called Lal Mati, which means red soil in English. As we walked along, we saw more Santhal huts with murals and paintings on their walls. These murals depict scenes from daily life: a man and a woman going on a journey, a woman holding a bird, peacock and horse painted on the wall. The tribal paintings and murals bring in an artistic vibe to the meandering alleys. Some buildings have very interesting perforated walls, while some have beautiful jali patterned fenestrations. These are called living walls. Their perforations have interesting patterns and allow light and breeze. They are artistic expressions of the boundary between the inside and outside. As we walked further into the hamlets, the villagers' daily activities unfolded in front of our eyes. The Santhals live a hard-working yet simple life. Tagore found a different beauty in their lives, which translates into his poem Shautal Me. Jai ashe Shautal Me, শিমুল গাছের তলে কাঁকর বিছানো পদ পেয়ে মোটা শাড়ি আঁট করে ঘিরে আছে তনু কালো দেহ বিধাতার ভোলা মন কারিগর কেহ কোনো কালো পাখিটিরে গড়িতে গড়িতে শ্রাবণের মেঘেও তরিতে উপাদান খুঁজি ওই নারী রচিয়াছে বুঝি. Somewhere while wandering, I stumbled upon this serene view. A lady continued with her chores while ducks flocked around and animals wandered by. We found our way into a traditional Santhal home, mud walls and metal or thatched roofs and a small door opening. Most Santhal homes had a typical courtyard surrounded by mud huts and open verandas. The courtyard is the center of living for the family. Their kitchen is mostly open or semi-open. There is a granary storage and a small kitchen garden in the courtyard in most houses. Poultry and animal rearing is a common sight in Santhal households. Having no vehicular traffic, the roads doubled as an area for drying grains in the sun. We met these kids in Balipara and played with them for a while. They were joyously celebrating a birthday with a humble cake made out of mud and streamers made out of leaves. It takes moments like these for us to realize how content one can be even without the glitz of city lights. I wondered how the tribal lifestyle will shape them. Would they grow up to make murals and handicrafts like the older villagers did? I had heard about the Khowai hut where one can buy these handicrafts. Amita, would you tell us about the hut and what made it so special?
Upma, the huts are held on the Khowai and they have a dazzling display of Santhal crafts. But what's even more interesting is the setting. It's a unique landscape. Khowai, meaning eroded land, is a generic term for ravines that were a dominant feature of this landscape. The undulating land was eroded by ephemeral streams in natural drainage channels, forming gullies that became deep and wide ravines near the river. This barren wilderness was a fascinating landscape to poets and painters. Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, who lived and taught in Tagore School, painted the Khowai in the minimalist modern style sometime in the mid-1930s. Rabindranath Tagore remembers, in the hollows of the sandy soil, the rainwater had ploughed deep furrows, carving out miniature mountain ranges full of red gravel and pebbles of various shapes, through which ran tiny streams, revealing the geography of Lilliput. However, little of the ravines remain today. In the last century and a half, the barren landscape was transformed slowly by adding fresh topsoil and planting trees. The remnant Khowai on the edge of Sonajuri forest is a glimpse into the unique and fragile landscape nestling between the wooded river bank and farms on the north and protected forest on its south. Khowai is the site of daily and weekly haats. The weekly haat is an organized affair with the craftsmen seated in linear rows. The daily haat is spread over a larger area. The small timber pavilions and colorful umbrellas over displayed wares are eye-catching. Our Toto joined a long line inching their way on a Saturday evening to the haat. On my left is the Benuria Canal running parallel to the road. The landscape I had photographed earlier had tall eucalyptus and sonajuri trees soaring above a slightly undulating terrain covered with lal mati. It felt eerie, a kind of abstracted forest defined by stark vertical and horizontal plains. By evening, the forest was transformed. It had come alive with music, dance, and an array of beautiful objects displayed enticingly on the ground. The empty grove was now a performance space in the weekly haat. As I began walking, the haat unfolded like paintings coming alive, each frame dominated by rich colors, forms, and textures, the likes of which I had never seen before. This was a dynamic landscape, changing with the ceaseless flow of people as they walked, paused, stooped, squatted, reached out, and struck up conversations with the vendors. This was no ordinary haat of plastic toys and nylon saris. Here were handcrafted objects, miniature tablas, bamboo flutes, key rings, and fans. There was, of course, Tagore memorabilia. There were door hooks jutting out of auspicious Ganeshas, boats, cottages, fish, and rabbits, and colorful beaded necklaces and bracelets, and gaily patterned cloth bags and purses. The tall tree trunks became part of the stage setup in showcasing handicrafts and became the backrest for a sketcher. The forest became a performance arena for Santali women dancing gracefully in a circle with a pot balanced on their heads. A Baul minstrel was singing an enigmatic song on his ektara. The itinerant Baul creates an instant musical landscape event by his presence. I wondered about the meaning of his song. Upma had told me that Baul thinking questions the social mores and cannot be strictly categorized into either Hindu or Islamic doctrines. As I walked further, on my right I saw the bandh with water falling into the natural nala in the Sonajuri forest. It was an interesting viewing spot with people wading through water and taking photographs of the scenic view. The mapping captures the flow of people through the landscape as they move, pause to buy, eat, see the dances, and listen to music. Khowai becomes the stage set for the actors, vendors, buyers, Baul performers, dancers, and Toto drivers to create a cultural scene in which one can be totally immersed. The daily haat loomed into view. A lot more items were spread under colorful umbrellas. People rested on the timber pavilions. The forest was here, which somehow seemed tamed by the presence of these structures. As I walked further, the trees gave way to a line of timber buildings decorated with interesting murals. These were lodges and restaurants, reminding me that this was a tourist site. As darkness fell, the naked bulb illuminated the living wall, a modern jali, a backdrop to the street food vendor cooking over a stove. A small circle of admirers had formed around Baul musicians. Light was streaming from a lantern on the bamboo pole. The forest beyond was totally dark.
এই গানটির মধ্যে আমাদের গোটা বীরভূমে কোথায় কি আছে সেটা বর্ণনা করে যাক পদকর্তা। ও গো দেশ বিদেশের মানুষ যাও এই বীরভূম, যাও যাও এই বীরভূম।
The beautiful handicrafts are in the signature Shantiniketan style. Where are these objects crafted? What is their role in the aesthetics of placemaking?
To answer this question, we must go to Amar Kutir. Amar Kutir is a handloom cooperative nestling in a forest on the banks of Kopai. The forest here hides the khowai, although red soil or ranga matir crunches under my feet when I enter the complex. In addition to being the center for craft production that has improved the economic livelihood in neighboring villages, this is a historic site associated with India's freedom movement. The complex of buildings include workshops, showroom and retail shops, museum, health clinic, and residence. This quote from Sushen Mukherjee, founder of Amar Kutir, which means my cottage, sums up his aspiration of building a self-reliant community. He was influenced by Gandhi's Swadeshi movement and Tagore's vision for sustainable rural development, and in 1927 acquired land from the Zamindar of Surul village to set up a center for hand-printed cotton. Food vendors have parked their carts to cater to the stream of visitors who peak in the winter season. The space is enlivened by the singing of a baul seated in the pavilion. He sings to the tunes of the land, Mater Shur, and describes Kopai as entangled in his mind and songs. Tagore's statue in the central island looms into view. Batik and leather workshops are part of the complex. Batik dyeing is being done.
Few people know about the connection of this place with the national struggle for freedom. Tell us more.
A small museum on the premises narrates the history of Amar Kutir in detail. Sushen Mukherjee and his compatriots were involved in freedom struggle and were repeatedly jailed by the colonial government. Their political activities included Birbhum conspiracy and Quit India movement. Many were sentenced to hard labor and solitary confinement in Andaman Island. Sushen Mukherjee's legacy is living, as witnessed in the rising popularity of handicrafts of Amar Kutir, sold here in the retail showroom, as well as khowai hearts. His life is part of the larger narrative of the struggle to lift Indian villages out of poverty and of tremendous sacrifices by freedom fighters to obtain independence for the nation. Patnalal Dasgupta joined Sushen Mukherjee at Amar Kutir in 1938 and began organizing villagers, taking a leading role in the Quit India movement. His efforts led to the establishment of Amar Kutir Society for Rural Development as a registered body in 1978.
Can I take the trail along Kopai to visit Amar Kutir?
Yes, there is a path behind the buildings to the grove of trees, and the view opens to the river, muddy and placid here. This unique cultural landscape of Kopai and Khowai has stories for us if we learn to read it. These stories are about places and people. Kopai snaking its way through the plains and the undulating terrain of Khowai, carved out by ephemeral streams, are central to the lives of the communities living here. They are fragile landscapes. The delicate balance between nature and culture is threatened by overuse and exploitation of natural resources. Exploring these landscapes was a memorable experience which we have relived with you. We want others to discover the places for themselves. And for that, we propose a network of trails that will open up the landscape to the explorer.
To experience the viewpoints and experience the essence of the rural life associated to the river Kopai, a system of bike and walking trails can be proposed along the path which we took during our journey. It will start from the bridge and end at the beginning of Santhal village.
And a guided tour through the Santhal hamlets would be an added attraction to tourists in Shantiniketan. It could incorporate a hands-on workshop, a sumptuous tribal cuisine meal, and much more. Also, the pukus or the water bodies in most of these hamlets require attention as they have been drying up due to various reasons.
Khowai is an ecologically sensitive zone where too many built structures and a high human footfall is threatening its integrity. To reduce pressure on this fragile ecosystem, hearts can be held at various sites in rotation, allowing this landscape to recover and regenerate. The network of trails will take visitors to other places and distribute footfall. Preserving the cultural heritage of Shantiniketan entails conserving its landscapes. This can only happen when we understand how culture and ecology are intertwined and interdependent. Understanding comes from direct experience, and we hope the stories we have told you will make you explore these unique landscapes.